Hi everybody. In this fifth lecture I would like to show an endgame study by Aloni. I must admit that it's not exactly a theoretical method for getting a certain result, and there aren't precise moves in as such for you to memorize. But the point is, it's quite a brilliant example of a theme. And this is that when a rook is trying to combat two pawns, which sometimes advance, sometimes aren't, there's a key to getting the most out of your winning chances with the rook, and that is king activity. Okay, so we see here that with the pawns coming down the board, this king is not very well placed to stop the pawns, as it would be if it were at g1. That's an ideal circumstance. But let's try to work out, how does white win this? So it's an in-game study, so very complex stuff. Okay, it might be a bit strange for me to look at something so complex, but the point is still there. I'm trying to show you a great example of how to play, not what moves exactly to play. So let's see. Obviously, white can take a pawn here. He can choose between two. But let's see what would happen if he took with check the f5 pawn. Then black plays king g4, and after rook f7, h5, white can even gain a tempo here with check, which forces king f3, rook h7, which forces king g4, and king f7. And it looks as though he's gained a move. You know, the rook is ideally placed on h7, and the king has gained a move reaching a more prominent square. But even now, this is a draw because of h4, king f6, h3, king e5, king g3, king e4, h2, king e3, king g2. This is a draw because if rook g7 check, bear in mind that black was threatening to queen, then even king h1 or king f1 easily draws. King h1 works because of the stalemate threat. So returning all the way to our initial position, if rook takes f5 check doesn't work tactically, then we have to look at king takes h7. Now king g4, king g6, and f4. And now there comes a very important theme, and this is body check. Okay, so because the kings can't touch each other, then there's a way of kind of repelling a king and preventing him from accessing key squares. So in this position is body check, since the white king cannot advance to these squares, and it cannot advance to f6. Excuse me. So white's in kind of predicament, and we see that because of this, black draws pretty convincingly. So I've played that incorrectly. Don't forget body check, so we play f3, and white still cannot bring his king over. And this is enough to draw, I believe, because of the pawn queens. So going all the way back, that is why we can arrive at this fantastic solution, king f7, double exclamation point. And the simple idea is that the king must be active. I want to reinforce this idea of king activity in the center, in the endgame, and in the center, that's a great place for the king. So really, the plan is to come all the way over to g1 when it's completely game over. Obviously, black has some moves before then, but we can see that that is crucial. Now, king g5, g4, king e6, and h5 is a really great move here. Again, white shouldn't take pawns, he must focus on king activity. And rook takes f5 here, falls to h4, king e5, h3, and sure enough, black queens his pawn. We see that because of his body checks, the king cannot come into these crucial squares, and so very simply the h pawn is too fast. So going back, not that far, excuse me, after king f7, king g4, king e6, h5, instead of rook takes f5, king e5 makes sense. And I think that still it looks as though black's getting quite active, but now here's the point. King d4, a very nice move. White resists the temptation to take material and continues to fight for the initiative. Now h3 fails more simply to king e3, when I believe h2 can be met with rook h6, and after king g3 then let me see, king e2, king g3, rook g6 check, king h3, king f2. This is very nice. Point is, just going back to clear things up, in this position after check, with king h1, and the idea of stalemate doesn't work, simply because king f2 forces f4. Don't forget about the extra pawn, and that's very useful because we get checkmate just in time. Returning, that explains why king h3 is forced, and now after king f2, I believe that h1 queen loses material immediately, and that's game over. And h1 knight is a nice idea, but it's trapped after king f3. There's a threat of checkmate, so after king h2, black has some problems. I suppose we can just wait with rook g8 on the basis that knight g3 and knight f2 lose the knight immediately, and after f4, rook g7, we still have this kind of zugzwang position. Let me see. No, beg your pardon. After f4, I believe that king takes f4 wins. Since knight g3 loses, and king h3 can be answered by king f3. If now knight f2, seemingly saving the knight, then king f3, knight h3, rook h8, and white still wins material. Now I got those moves mixed up, but the principle is still there. With this king so far advanced compared with being placed poorly on g8, white gets a fantastic game, and in fact he wins this. So I don't know if there are any other variations to analyse, but we see there that especially if the h pawn goes forward, then white has some nice tactics, simply because he's playing with an extra piece. You know, on g8 it wasn't doing anything, but now the king attacks. If after king d4, then king g3, I think we transpose to a similar variation after white first gets the king active. Okay, thank you very much. I'll leave it there. Very insightful look into a rook ending. So, you know, that was a great endgame study by Aloni. He clearly demonstrated that king activity is far more important than a pawn here or there. Thank you very much. PeterLalic signing off, saying good luck with your chess.